Thank you, everybody, for coming to the Aaron Torres Podcast YouTube page. If you could do me a quick favor, see that little subscribe button at the bottom of your screen? Go ahead, click that subscribe button. Really does help our channel grow, our audience grow, and I really do appreciate it more than you know. So click that subscribe button. Appreciate your support. Now, here's the video that you came here for. Go to the second game in the East region in Newark. It's the late game. It is Thursday night. It is Duke versus Arizona, about a 9:30 or so tip-off. Although, again, if BYU and Alabama combine for 200 points, maybe it goes a little bit later. Duke comes into this game as a 9.5-point favorite. Actually, it's down to 9. It was 9.5 this morning. Arizona, of course, is coming in as the underdog flying across country. First of all, I think what's interesting about this game, Duke, Arizona, different coasts. A lot of symmetry between these two programs. One, obviously, we know played in the 0-1 title game. 2011 Sweet 16, of course, we all remember that game. Derek Williams goes crazy. Dunk from the foul line. Kyrie Irving's out with Duke. But let's just look at the last couple years. They played a home-and-home. Arizona goes into Cameron Indoor and wins 2 seasons ago. This year, Duke goes into McHale. Worth noting, Caleb Love has... I would venture to guess, I don't know this, I would bet he's played against Duke about as many times as an opposing player can. Twice in his first year, twice in his second year, 3 times in his second year, twice in his third year at least. So that's 7 right there, plus 8, 9. He's played a minimum of 9 games because, of course, remember, they played in the 2022 Final Four where Caleb Love sent Coach K to the retirement home in New Orleans with the win for North Carolina that put him in the title game. So 2 programs that weirdly, for not being in the same conference, know each other. As I said, they did play in November. And the one thing I will say, I think both teams are significantly better since that game. Arizona was struggling out of the gate. We've talked about that time and time again. But Duke, as good as they've been all year, I do think they're probably a little bit of a different team than the one that went into the McHale Center back in November. In terms of the pathways that these teams have gotten here, you know, I think everybody kind of knows. First of all, let me say this. Duke, I think we all kind of, you know, everyone likes to poke at Duke, this, that, the other thing. They are a really good team. And I was talking to somebody about this. You know, Duke, it was about a decade ago that they really went all in on the one-and-done stuff. We're going to recruit the best freshmen that we can and figure it out from there. I think this is probably the best team that they have had surrounding the elite freshman talent. Now, listen, obviously a lot of it's the portal era. You can cherry pick guys, this, that, the other thing. To when you get a Cooper flag, you can basically pick, you know, like you don't have guys that are in the program that you're just stuck with for 4 years, right? Guys come, guys go. But I give John Shire credit. I think he did as good of a job as you could putting a team around Cooper Flag. And, you know, like even go back to that year they had Zion. It's like that team really wasn't like built that well. It was just Zion was so good. RJ Barrett was so good that they kind of overwhelmed everybody. Well, this team overwhelms everybody, and they're just awesome all across the board. Like I said, great team, built well, dominant. And I think the thing that's worth noting is that when Cooper Flag is in the lineup, they've basically destroyed everybody over the last 6 weeks. Okay, I think the last loss was early February at Clemson. I know the last loss was early February at Clemson. I just don't know the exact date. But I bring it up because since then, the closest game since their last loss was against North Carolina at home, a closest game being relative to the games that they have Cooper Flag in. So basically, when they have Cooper Flag, the closest game that they have played was a 13-point margin of victory at North Carolina. Producer Matt does confirm it was February 8th. I actually thought that was the day that they lost to Clemson. So basically, you take out the games that Cooper Flag didn't play in the ACC tournament. The closest game they've played is a 13-point margin of victory at North Carolina to end the regular season. It's dominance. They are excellent. They are superb. They are built well. But let me also say this. You know who I think is built pretty well and probably doesn't get enough credit for it? The Arizona Wildcats, man. Listen, you know, I thought it was really interesting. You know, what's cool about the NCAA tournament is these broadcasting crews, sometimes you just don't get to cover a team a lot as a broadcaster, right? So like Robbie Hummel, I think works for Fox and ESP or Fox and CBS. Those teams, those networks don't have the Big 12. And so this was the first time last weekend, him seeing the Arizona Wildcats. Jalen Rose, who obviously doesn't normally cover college basketball, was also in the broadcast booth. And hearing them talk about Arizona, they were like, wow, This team is way more impressive in person than we realize. They have all the boxes, right? And we talked about this on Friday night show. If you tuned in late with us on Friday, a lot of you didn't. It was kind of a little bit of a quiet crowd on Friday. But we talked about the fact Arizona, they were talking about on the broadcast, they have all the freaking pieces, okay? Multiple guards that can get to the rim and beat you. Caleb Love, who was phenomenal against Arizona. KJ Lewis, I know, has been up and down, but he is a phenomenal athlete, gets to the rim. Jaden Bradley is like the quintessential guy that can beat you off the dribble and finish at the rim. My guy, Carter Bryant, who I can't stop raving about this guy. Whatever he does, he's going to be a top 10 pick if he wants to leave. It's just whether he wants to come back or not for another season. And then I think Tommy Lloyd has done a good job in the front court. Toby Awaka, Tennessee fans remember that name. 12 points, 14 rebounds the other night against Oregon. Henry Visar has been, I think, as improved as anybody in college basketball. Anthony Del Orso hitting threes. Another team that is just very well put together. And listen, I know when you get to the Sweet 16, there are no easy games, but it's kind of disappointing. We could have gotten this in an Elite Eight and a Final Four because I think these are two of the top 12 or 13 teams in college basketball right now. We've talked about it. Arizona, don't look at the AP poll. Don't look at the rankings. They started low, and then every time they would kind of move up the rankings, they take a loss. But if you look at the back half of their season, their losses, basically since like early January, they have 2 losses to Houston, 1 loss at Iowa State, 1 loss at Kansas. They lose to BYU in a game that comes down to that one play where Richie Saunders gets fouled with 2-3 seconds left in the game. And they lost to Kansas State when Kansas State was playing really well. So if you look at them, they've basically beaten every single team that they should and are expected to beat really since about early to mid January. And so with it, I'm going to go ahead and pick this game. I'm really torn because when the bracket came, or when Arizona advanced on Sunday night or early Monday morning, depending on where you live, I was like, I think Arizona could potentially pull off the upset, and I still do. If I was betting, we'll give out some gambling picks sometime this week, either on my Twitter page or on my Instagram page or whatever. I think Duke -9 is just way too many points in this game. I don't know that I can pick Arizona, though. Now, transparently, I think Arizona can pull the upset. But when I look at Duke, I think the thing that stands out to me, the positional size. Malawach is 7'2", 7'3". Cooper Flagg is 6'8", 6'9". Their guys are just so big, and you just see them wear teams down that don't have the size to match them. I mean, even the Baylor game, it was close for 13, 14 minutes. I mean, I remember midway through the first half, the announcers are like, wow, Duke really hasn't been in a close game since forever. And then all of a sudden they're up 20. And so with Arizona, I do worry about in the paint. To quote my buddy Mike Luke, they got plenty of girth with Toby Awaka and guys like that. But do they have enough size to match Malawach? I'm going to go ahead and pick Duke. I think Arizona can pull off the upset, but I'll pick Duke. I'll say final score 82-78. I think Arizona makes it a game. I think Arizona covers. It is just hard for me to see a scenario where Duke does not win.